Joining us now, NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez, NBC News correspondent David Noriega joins us from Pico Union in Los Angeles, the most Salvadoran neighborhood in the U.S. NBC News senior Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley and Veronica Cardenas, former Assistant Chief Counsel for Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. So, Gabe, what are these two leaders looking to achieve in this visit?
Hello again. Good morning, Jose. You laid it out quite nicely. We're expecting President Bukele here any moment now. But he has become this key ally for the Trump administration as this mass deportation operation, as the administration tries to ramp it up. And both leaders have gotten closer over the years, similar in many ways. For example, in dealing with the press, also the focus on violent gangs. Bukele in El Salvador over the last few years, very popular in the country for cracking down on violent crime, but also critics say that he's rolled back civil liberties. So this visit comes amid this global trade war where El Salvador, as every other country, is also facing 10% tariffs. So we expect Bukele to talk about that. Also, just before this trip, the State Department has now updated the travel advisory for El Salvador to level 1, which is the safest type of country. But quickly, Jose, you mentioned that this all comes as the deportation battle continues with that Maryland man who was deported to El Salvador, a Justice Department lawyer saying that he was mistakenly deported. But a short time ago, top White House aide, Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, arguing the point that the administration now does not believe he was mistakenly sent. He didn't directly answer the question whether that would come up here at the White House today, but he did signal that President Trump likely would not ask for the Maryland man, to be returned, even though there has been a court order to facilitate that. The White House trying to argue that facilitate and the interpretation of that word, that they don't have to effectuate the return. Just if he were to send back, they would need to facilitate that. So obviously, Jose, this battle is ongoing, but the president expected to receive his key ally here within the next few moments.
Gabe Gutierrez at the White House, thank you so very much. So, Julia, what's the significance of Bukele's leadership in the eyes of the Trump administration? I mean, their partnership has been, in a way, kind of short-lived in the sense that he didn't really have a lot of, the president of the United States didn't have a lot of communications with Bukele, even though one of his sons did go to Bukele's inaugural.
That's right. There's also the way the White House looks at it and the way the courts are going to look at it, Jose, and I'll talk about both. But one is that there's been a warming relationship between this administration and Bukele. As you know, Secretary of State Marco Rubio visited El Salvador as one of the first visits from the Trump administration right after the inauguration, where Bukele first threw out the idea of even having Americans being held in that prison, something the president said he would now consider if it's legal. Secretary of State Kristi Noem has also been inside that prison. There have been a lot more communication between the two countries since Trump took office, especially because it centers around that CCOT prison. And as the administration might struggle to really deport the millions they wanted to, they can point to CCOT as a possibility for crossing the border illegally or even being in the U.S. legally and having your status revoked. That is as strong of a tool as they can have to try to deter future migration. And so it's a really key partnership. The way the courts look at it, though, is we've heard it argued in court that, of course, the Trump administration can get these men back from CCOT prison because Secretary Noem was inside wearing her $50,000 watch, as they point out, that obviously there's enough of a relationship to be able to send Noem inside, to be able to bring Bukele to the White House here, that they should be able to ask for the return of Mr. Abrego Garcia, that man from Maryland, who the Trump administration has admittedly said was sent there as a result of an administrative error. And so really, the more this relationship warms, the harder it is for the Trump administration to argue in court that they have no power over receiving anyone back, getting anyone out of that CCOT prison without El Salvador just deciding to do it on its own.
Yeah, I mean, Veronica, how uniquely significant is Bukele and is El Salvador to President Trump's deportation efforts?
I think it's really important, especially because Trump does not want to clog the immigration courts. He wants people to self-deport. He wants people to be removed quickly. And this is one way that he can do that. The Supreme Court has spoken that the way to challenge this is through individual individuals bringing forward habeas cases, which can be time consuming, and it must be in the locations where they are currently held. So this will be one stop to the Trump administration. But the problem is that when people are being removed in this way, there's no notice given. And so that may be one of the hurdles that individuals will have in challenging this type of removal.
What do you mean? What is that? What's the biggest hurdle there, other than the obvious?
Well, the fact that people aren't being told when they're being deported to El Salvador, or that they are even being deported. And so a lot of people have described this as being disappeared. And so people don't know where their family members are. Lawyers don't know where their clients are until they show up in some type of video in El Salvador.
David, you've been talking to members of the Salvadoran community there in Los Angeles. What are you hearing from them?
Well, Jose, so just to set the scene a little bit, I'm in a bakery here in Pico Union, which has the largest Salvadoran population anywhere in the United States. This bakery is a bit of an institution. It's been here for 20 years. I've been talking to people here all morning. Salvadorans are very politically engaged people. Everyone is aware of Bukele's visit to the White House. Everyone has opinions, and it's complicated. On the one hand, Bukele is very popular. People like that he has, in their words, sort of cleaned up the gang problem. But some people have misgivings about these deportations to the mega prison in El Salvador, to Secot. So I talked to the owner of the bakery. Again, he's had this business for about 20 years, came from El Salvador before then. I asked him first about Abrego Garcia, that Maryland man who was deported by the administration's own admission, mistakenly, to the mega prison in El Salvador. Here's what he said. Take a listen. Have you heard of the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia? What do you think of that?
Pobre muchacho, llegando a la prisión esa no tiene facilidad de salir, ¿no? Porque estamos en un sistema de que el que entra ahí ya no sale.
So he says that poor young man, once he's in that prison, there's no easy way for him to get out. That's what the whole prison is designed for. Once you're in there, you kind of can't get out. But, you know, just to put this in context, Jose, Oscar, the owner of the bakery, had told me that he really approves of Bukele building this prison and putting what he described as Salvadoran criminal actors in that prison, because the way people talk about it is this changed the situation in El Salvador from one where people were afraid to leave their homes, afraid to move around their neighborhoods because of the gang problem, who are now living in freedom, as they describe it. So it's really, really driven up. He's one of the most popular leaders in the entire world. But people are also a little bit wary of the relationship between Bukele and Trump. A number of people today, for example, have described it to me as a business relationship, a monetary relationship. There's millions of dollars at stake. People kind of joking about Bukele coming to the U.S. to, you know, receive these $1 million payments. I asked Oscar as well what he thinks about the fact that the Trump administration is now deporting people to the mega prison, not just Kilmar Abrego Garcia, but the general relationship. What he said I thought was pretty interesting. Take a listen. Donald Trump has been working closely with Nayib Bukele, including deporting some people to the prison in El Salvador. What do you think of that?
Bueno, no lo veo que esté bien, porque tendrían que haber sido tratos más amplios, no entre dos personas, como dos presidentes que nada más dijeron: te los mando, los recibes. El Congreso parece que no ha hecho un tratado con El Salvador, ni la Asamblea Legislativa de El Salvador ha hecho un tratado con
es entre los dos presidentes.
Es un tratado entre dos presidentes sin reglas establecidas.
Sí. Le falta transparencia. Pero
más que todo transparencia, ni reglas establecidas que vayamos a saber hasta cuándo o qué tiempo tenemos a esa gente allá.
Sí. This is very interesting. So he's saying, even though he approves of Bukele, that he doesn't love the fact that Trump is deporting people to the mega prison there because there was no clear agreement between the two countries, transparent agreement between the two countries. It's just this sort of obscure deal between the two presidents. Jose, at the end of the day, Salvadorans, the ones that I'm talking to here today, they don't just want security in their country. They also want democracy. They want economic opportunities. And while the security problem seems for now to have been largely addressed, they're a little bit worried about what some of them describe as a slide towards authoritarianism or autocracy.